Hey everyone, this is Dan. Let's talk about what's happening with Moderna and BioNTech. I'm still very bullish on these two companies. My price target for Moderna is $180 to $200, and for BioNTech is $130 to $150 in the period from February to April 2021. If you have watched my previous Moderna and BioNTech videos, you might have noticed that I increased my Moderna target by $10 because of the good news that we've been hearing. Actually, we also heard a lot of good news about BioNTech. I will probably be raising my target for BioNTech pretty soon as well. Let's go into the details. In the next few minutes, I will be talking about the most important news in the last couple of days, and I will go into the charts with the technical analysis, and then we'll look at the number of new COVID cases in the US, UK, and Israel, where they have high percentages of populations vaccinated with the BioNTech or Moderna vaccine. Some additional recent events that might have moved the stock prices upward or downward, and an update of my valuation of the two companies, and then we'll compare the different vaccines in the market, and we'll talk about what kind of catalyst will cause the stock prices to go up or go down. This is a very positive piece of news. On February 11th, the Biden administration announced that they finalized a deal to purchase 100 million doses of vaccine each from Pfizer and Moderna. And then on February 8th, the government of South Africa stopped the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine because of the concern that AstraZeneca vaccine might not be effective enough against the new South Africa variant. In the meanwhile, the World Health Organization continues to support the AstraZeneca vaccine. Let's look at the chart for Moderna. This is the daily chart. As of Friday afternoon, it closed at 183.7. We can see this upward sloping channel, which is very bullish. At this point, we'll have to see whether the price will continue to get support from the lower boundary of this channel. Here's my target price range, 180 to 200, which is quite achievable looking at how the price has been trending. And then recently we saw this buy signal from the DMI indicator. A couple of days later, a buy signal from MACD. But in the meanwhile, we saw the warning signs from RSI indicating that the stock was overbought at those points. But the momentum is still strong, primarily because of the good news we've been hearing. This is the 15-minute chart of Moderna. Let's talk about the trades I've made in the last few days. Most of these trades were recorded in the update section of the last Moderna BioNTech video that I posted. Usually I post the information a few minutes after I make the trades. On February 5th, I bought Moderna at 171, and then on the same day I sold it at 172.8. On February 8th, when the price spiked up, I took the opportunity to sell more shares of Moderna. The strategy I have is that I roughly hold half of my Moderna and BioNTech shares for long term, and then the other half I use for swing trades. Here I overextended myself a little bit. Actually, I sold 50% of my shares, and then I sold the 50% of the remaining shares. So at that point, I basically have only a quarter of the shares. And then later on, I found an opportunity to buy in again at 180.9. And then later on that day, I sold at 182.65 at a small profit. And then I bought in again at 179.21, sold at 184 a day later. So far, I've been doing pretty well with my swing trades. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you to click the like, subscribe, and notification button if you'd like to get notification when I post the next video. Let's continue. Again, 15-minute chart. We can see this triangular pattern. Typically, when we continue to move to the right side of the time axis, the price will either break upward or break downward at the peak of the triangle. My guess is that it will most likely go up because of the positive news we will continue to receive about Moderna. Let's look at support and resistance levels. From this hourly chart, we can see resistance at 218 and 200, and I see support at 175 and 166. Let's look at BioNTech. This is the daily chart. As of last Friday, it closed at 117.6. We see this nice upward trending channel here for BioNTech, so it's pretty bullish. And we see this buy signal from DMI and another buy signal from MACD. This is my price target range, 130 to 150. So far, BioNTech is not approaching my target range yet, maybe because it's a foreign company, it's really underappreciated by the investors at this point. But I'm pretty sure that the price will go up eventually. This is a 15-minute chart for BioNTech. Let's look at the trades I made. First of all, I bought at about 117.2 on February the 3rd, which is a little bit to the left of this chart. In the update notes to my last video, I mentioned that I sold on February 8th at 119.09 for a small profit. And then I found the opportunity to buy in again on February 9th at 118.12. And I sold the following day at 119.49. And then finally, last Friday, I bought in again at 116.91. Again, from the 15-minute period, we see this triangular pattern. It'll be critical for the next couple of days for us to see whether this pattern will start to break upward or break downward. Hopefully, it will break upward. Let's look at the historical support and resistance. I see resistance at 120 and 125 and support at 111 and 114. It's important for us to track the daily new COVID cases in the US, UK, and Israel because these three countries have high percentages of their populations vaccinated with either the BioNTech or Moderna vaccine. In the US, where we have 15.8 of the population vaccinated with either the first or the second shot, as you can see, the daily new cases are trending nicely downward rapidly, which is really great news. In the United Kingdom, where they have 22.6% of the population vaccinated with either the first or second shot, their daily new cases are trending downward even faster than the US. In Israel, where they have 69.3% of the people vaccinated with either the first or second shot, their cases are starting to come down as well. So that's good news all around. It's a good validation of the effectiveness of the two vaccines. One thing that I've mentioned with my last video was that because of the low effectiveness of AstraZeneca vaccine, that Moderna and BioNTech can very possibly replace some of AstraZeneca's market share. Last time my estimate was that the democratic countries where they have high GDP levels, it's most likely that the AstraZeneca market share will be replaced by Moderna or BioNTech because it's not likely for a politician in a democratic country to try to run for re-election by saying, hey, I bought you the third best or the fourth best vaccine. They want to boast about being able to procure the very best vaccine for the voters. That's how they get re-elected. And that's why I believe AstraZeneca dosages currently under contracts in these countries will eventually be replaced by Moderna or BioNTech, and that total up to 894 million doses. Now, because the U.S. already announced the additional purchase of 200 million doses from Moderna and BioNTech, we have to reduce that by 200 million doses, and that'll give us still 694 million doses. In addition, Johnson & Johnson, again, because the effectiveness is not as great as BioNTech or Moderna, so most likely the 364 million doses currently under contracts with Johnson & Johnson could be replaced by Moderna or BioNTech as well. If you look at what countries have signed these contracts, they are mostly democratic countries with high GDP levels. If you add up the 364 million doses with 694 million doses here, we're looking at about 1 billion additional doses for Moderna and BioNTech. Additional significant events include that Canada purchased an additional 4 million doses of vaccine from Moderna. UNICEF signed agreement with Pfizer-BioNTech for additional vaccines. The quantity and price of the agreement were not disclosed. Most likely, Pfizer-BioNTech sold that at a discount for the developing nations. QATA, the Ministry of Public Health, issued authorization for Moderna. The FDA authorized Lilly's monoclonal antibody for treatment of COVID-19. This is a treatment, not a vaccine, so I don't think that's a threat to Moderna or BioNTech. Additional news, Moderna entered into contract with Taiwan and Colombia for 5 million doses for Taiwan and 10 million doses for Colombia. The EU ordered 300 million more doses from BioNTech Pfizer. And BioNTech is talking with the German government about getting funding to expand the production capacity from the current planned 2 billion doses a year to 3 billion doses for 2022. That will be a substantial increase in the production volume. The United Kingdom authorities said annual COVID-19 booster would be very probable, which would translate into steady revenue streams for Moderna and BioNTech. Australia has secured an additional 10 million doses of the BioNTech vaccine. Johnson & Johnson will ask the U.S. for the emergency approval, but because of the effectiveness rate of Johnson & Johnson is not as high as Moderna and BioNTech, I don't think that'll be a problem. We'll talk about the effectiveness rates of the different vaccines in the next couple of minutes. The UK is going to try combining Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccine. New Zealand approved the BioNTech vaccine. Singapore approved the Moderna vaccine. Switzerland at this point declined to approve the AstraZeneca vaccine because of the lack of data. I'd like to update my valuation of Moderna. First of all, I start with top 11 pharmaceutical companies. I use the average forward P ratio of 12.4, and I assume 33% net margin for Moderna, which is a net margin for Regeneron. And then I extrapolate from the signed contract so far into what kind of revenues they will generate for 2021, 2022, and 2023. Also keep in mind that Moderna and BioNTech will most likely replace a substantial portion of the market share from AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. And then we can also look at the possibility of future booster shots against new variants. So these are all very positive developments for Moderna and BioNTech. And with these calculations, I arrive at my new target of $180 to $200 a share. Likewise, for BioNTech, I use the same method. With BioNTech, there's additional helpful piece of information that Pfizer announced that the revenue for 2021 for the COVID vaccine will most likely be $15 billion. And we know they already have 978 million doses of signed contract. And based on these two numbers, I extrapolate into 2022 and 2023 and arrived at a very conservative estimate of $110 to $130 a share. Most likely I have to increase this target. I'm waiting for the market to catch on to the very solid fundamentals of BioNTech. Once that starts clicking, I'm pretty sure the price will go up quickly. Let's look at the analyst opinions. This is the table from last time, about a week ago, when I posted my last video. And since last time, there have been a couple of small changes, primarily related to BioNTech. TipRanks.com increased the average price target for BioNTech from 119.75 cents to 122, and increased the low target from 97 to 106. So that's positive for BioNTech. These prices are pretty much in the same ballpark with my estimates for the two companies. Now, in my video about a month ago, I predicted that Moderna and BioNTech will go up like how Regeneron and Amgen went up after their first major blockbuster drugs were approved by the FDA. When I first published this chart, we were around this point, about 10 to 15 days after FDA approval. And I predicted that the Moderna line and BioNTech line, which are the blue line and the black line, would go up like these two lines, corresponding to Regeneron and Amgen. Now we're about 60 days after FDA approval. We are right around here. We can see that Moderna is trending upward, following my prediction nicely. BioNTech is lagging a little bit behind, but I'm pretty sure it will pick up pretty soon as well. I will continue to update this chart in my future videos as we approach day 100, 200, and so on. Let's compare the different COVID vaccines. As we know, the BioNTech vaccine is 95% effective after the second dose, and it sells for about $20 a dose. Moderna is 95.6% effective after the second dose, and it's been selling at $32 to $37 a dose. Johnson & Johnson, only 68% effective, although it's sold at a much lower price of $10 a dose. So I believe the developing nations will most likely use Johnson & Johnson, but the developed nations will most likely want to buy the vaccines from BioNTech or Moderna. The AstraZeneca is between 76% and 82% effective and only sells for $3 to $4 a dose. Again, that's good for developing nations. Sinovac, depending on where the data is coming from, it ranges from 50% effective to 91% effective. Sinopharm, about 86% effective. Gamaleya Sputnik, it's 91.6% effective. Basically, Moderna and BioNTech vaccines are the best defense against COVID-19. That's why I'm so bullish about these two companies. The following catalysts will cause the stock price to go up. Any additional contracts for the vaccines, and we're seeing that already. Reduction in daily new COVID cases in UK, Israel, and US. Also, we're seeing that happening. Failures of other vaccines in development, and ability for Moderna and BioNTech to quickly develop new booster shots against new mutations. Any bearish catalysts include any supply chain problems. And by the way, BioNTech had a supply chain problem with production about a few weeks ago. It looks like they have been able to secure production contracts from other pharmaceutical companies. At this point, the production problems are quickly getting resolved. Success of other less expensive vaccines will be a bearish influence for Moderna and BioNTech. So far, we haven't seen a lot of great successes from the other companies. And any severe allergic reactions to the vaccine. Again, I'd like to mention that my target for Moderna is between $180 to $200 and BioNTech $130 to $150 for the period from February to April 2021. If you're watching this video a few days after February 14, please make sure to check the update section below the video in case I've entered any updates. And if you like what you've seen, I would very much appreciate if you can click the like, subscribe, and notification button. That's for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. As usual, I would appreciate your comments, suggestions, and questions. At this point, I'd like to remind you that I'm not a financial advisor. You should make your own decision when buying or selling financial instruments, and you should probably check with your financial advisors before you do so. I share my stock trading strategies for educational purpose only. This about wraps up my video for now. I will chat with you in the next few days. In the meanwhile, I'd like to wish you the very best with your financial investments.